of the technology where we are here. So, yes, it's of course a little extraordinary that we have this talk in Accra, because it's a part of a European media prize. But I'm here for a project to see Afrane. He's a fellow artist, and we will exhibit him in a bigger museum show in the Technische Sammlung in Dresden, which is called Magic Machines. So, here in Ghana, it's very interesting. Maybe most of you don't know this. If we make use of our technology in Europe, and these gadgets get old and we discard them, then they make their way to other places, to be disassembled, to be recycled, to be broken down into smaller parts. Let's say the computers are taken apart, the displays are separate, the hard disks are separate, everything. So one of the biggest scrap yards in the world where electronics end up is here in Ghana. So probably some of your tools, of your phones, of things you use ended up here already. And that's very interesting. It gives, of course, a very dangerous way of processing it. It's quite poisonous to burn the cables, to get out the copper, to extract the transistors, to take it apart. On the other hand, it gives an interesting opportunity of having all the things around that have been used, and they still can work for some thing. It's maybe you guys have been somewhere near your home at these places where they collected it, and you had the feeling, this is still valuable. This is something I could work with, even that it's broken. I misuse it, or I make a use out of it that was not intended. So Afrane, who is sitting next to me, coming from Kumasi, is the perfect artist working with this kind of strategy. And the work he's doing is most of the time consisting of found objects. But of course, I will not talk too much about it myself. He's sitting right next to me, and I want to introduce you now this way. And yeah, please let us know about your work and about the approach you have here in Ghana.
Yeah. Okay, nice to meet you all. So as introduced, my name is Afrane Makof, and mostly known as Afrane Makof, and I'm a Ghanaian artist. And basically, I'm a trained sculptor, and going along the way, I started to work with these consumer electronic devices. So I mostly prefer the discarded ones, because there's a difference between the discarded and the waste, or which is the dead ones. Because these are discarded ones, I believe, hold on to traces that were shared between its previous owners. So this also brings me to a very interesting point, which talks about the human-machine relationship, which is basically prosthetic. So we are looking at the idea of, I'm looking into the idea of prosthesis, because these machines are prosthetic extensions of ourselves, or augmentations of ourselves. So I find this kind of relationship very interesting, and I explore them within my practice. So as Anna said, the idea of the trance is basically kind of a mutated consumer electronic gadgets that comes, or that becomes possible after my intervention as an artist. So I kind of inverse the process of these electronic gadgets being prostheses or extensions of ourselves, and the artist, become the prosthesis for these discarded electronic gadgets. So if we are like mostly conversant with the idea of prosthesis, we know they have this kind of enhancement capability they give to people. So if you have a prosthetic leg, it might not be the leg you may prefer, but it has this advantage, like maybe if a metal leg can help you to break a wall or something. So it has this idea of enhancement. So these consumer electronic devices that I become prosthesis to enhance into these kind of alien or mutated forms. Those are the ones I call the trons. Yes. So the idea for me, the idea of prosthesis is a very core idea when it comes to technology and machines in general. Yes.
Thank you. Maybe what I can add is this idea of prothesis. It's an add-on, but what you do is you take something that was not meant to work like this. So I would call it even a hacking aspect. You mentioned that I'm part of the Chaos Computer Club, and I'm trying to organize their artistic installations and interventions. So in contemporary art right now, it's very interesting to use interventions to disturb things, because our consciousness is usually directed. Let's say we buy a machine, we buy something that should do a certain job. All we find out by this is that the job can be done by the machine. So it's an extension, it's a prothesis, right? But there is more possibilities in it. A phone has so many sensors, has so many things, cameras, microphones. It can air things. So we could make fine use of it, even in another idea that maybe the one who produced it didn't have before. And that's something where this artistic endeavor starts, where you start asking the question, okay, is that already it? I'm having now this MacBook in front of me. I paid a lot of money on my parents, but what else could I do with it? Just play, maybe create a little, but what if I combine it with the Arduino or Raspberry, and I have things now controlled with electricity and sensors that usually don't belong together at all, and I can just enlarge this system by combining things that don't belong together in the first place. That's the, let's say, core idea of hacking or taking the thing beyond. And it's a very, very playful approach. And it's the playful idea of you sit in the sandbox and you take a stick and you take a car and somehow you have a castle. And it's like, it's all in your imagination. But with technology, actually, we do the same. We observe first, okay, what functions does it have? Okay. Maybe I give you a little example of my artistic work. In India, I went to Bangalore, and I have friends there who are a part of a hacking collective called Hillhacks. So we organized some conferences there. This is how we met. So the guys, what they did is they built a filter for their air, for the daily air they breathe in the big city. So this filter would filter out particles of carbon, ruß, so burnt diesel, let's say, leaves these black particles, and you would breathe them in. So you filter them and you collect it, and you have a very black, dark, intense pigment. And this pigment you could solute in acrylic solution or in oil-based, and then you can make a print color out of it. That means you use the particles in the air with a normal well, it's not normal. It's a very it filters very small particles of 25 nanometer. And then if you take them out, I was making a print color out of it. So I went there, combined it together with the people. It's even there now. You can research it. It's called Air Ink. And this one I combined with the screen printing method. And I was printing with that screen in the street again. So not to paper, but to windows and walls and so on. So I was delivering back the pollution that was collected through the filter, and then I could print messages of, look, this is your dirt. Look, this is what you breathe in every day. Do we really want to have a world like this where we filter half an hour the air and then we can print already 1-page A4 from it, from 30 minutes filtering. So that shows a little, maybe a circle of what we could do with the idea of hacking into technology, of misusing different techniques. So printing, silk-screen printing is not meant to go in the street and print on some other people's windows. That is actually what we try to promote in our daily work when we make exhibitions and when we work on artistic projects. And of course, it's delicate if we switch from one place to another. Now I'm going to Africa and I'm talking about the carbon in the air. Of course, I am guilty in a way as well to contribute. Everybody contributes. It's even impossible not to do so. But to talk about what it means and to be a sign and to transform this idea of I'm part even of the questionable part, speak out those questions and question the question even, and then you're getting very close to an artistic idea of how you find yourself in the world, not being wrong, but being in the middle, and then even meeting over the continent and then seeing we share the same reality. Our stuff, the European stuff, is being brought here and then processed and so on. And then these things that look naive, even the artistic findings, they end up in museums for arts and technology. So I visited Afrane yesterday, and he has his machines presented there because now it's getting very interesting for the society to find these hacks and these spaces where it clashes together. Maybe I can pass the ball back a little and you can tell about how your works in the museum, who question technology and who criticize them maybe in a way, how they connect now with this kind of display to the public, which is very serious.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So there is an exhibition currently going on in Ghana in the Museum of Science and Technology, and the title is Back to the Museum. So the museum serves as a kind of a space for like historical archives for technological, archaeological, and for me, I'm very much into this technological kind of electronic devices. So for them, they're trying to actually put on display these devices as a way to communicate history in a linear form. So what I actually do is with my work, I break away from this linear historical kind of education, and then I mix these histories up to produce or come up with an interesting form, which in a way is a combination of histories back and forth and then being presented in a present for people to actually experience. So it's a really interesting experience for me, and also for people who really get to understand what is happening if they come to the museum space. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Maybe can you say a little word, because I think we got this a little short. Where do you find your materials that then are visible in the museum? Because I was talking about this source, but can you tell me about the process, how you select them? Do you feel something when you see it, when it's trash, or how do you identify what will be valuable for your work and what does not qualify?
Yes, beautiful. Anna, can you show the video, because then I'll talk over it. That'll help explain it. Okay, so I know the video get to those parts, but for me, the materials, how I get to collect them is based on, like I said, discarded. So I'm actually looking at working partially or fully working materials that has been that have been ditched by their owners. So we are all familiar with this idea of I need an upgrade of the machine I'm using, either a phone, a laptop, a television, a radio receiver, or whatever, VHS, all those stuff. So we put aside the older one and we go in for a newer one. So this also, my practice also deals with the idea of the consumer culture, which we are all guilty of actually. And then, what I do is when I collect these discarded materials, either from friends, because I have some that when I started working, I actually started collecting from my friends in the neighborhood. And also, I try to visit second-hand consumer electronic goods dealers, and then I buy from them. So why I'm interested in this one has to do with this idea of, I think even the video has that was the title given to the video, Ghost in Shell. So there is this idea of ghost in the machine, or ghost in the can, or ghost in the shell. And it talks about what becomes of all these fragments of codes and processes that are left within these devices when they are decommissioned or they are discarded. So I try to play around, like I said previously, like with the histories that these machines have, even from their owners, and then put them together to see how they play out. So if you look at the video, it has this kind of the idea of a Frankenstein monster being brought back to life. So the moment like it comes to life, it has this kind of it just bursts like an outburst of display of like the movement. So you have, let's say, if a limb from your hand is taken off, and you just like bring it back to life, or you pass power through it, it will start to act on a very in a very interesting way. So I try to play around with these ideas. So that is what you see mostly in the video that just played.
Cool, thank you. Well, now it's interesting. We are talking a lot about the play itself. There's actually a holy seriousness in play. You notice, I'm going back to the sandbox. When you're sitting there, you're totally concentrated as a child, and this kind of play becomes your reality, and the only reality. So I ask myself a lot the question, what if the things I'm playing with, and that's most of the time gadgets and electronic components like the ones you're using, and these components, they imitate our ability to sense. Let's say a camera we build after the example of the eye, or we have a microphone which is somehow inspired by the ear. We have things that sense what the finger sense, the taste. We can count molecules in air and look how they connect to the smelling organ. So we use technology to enhance our senses a lot. I mean, now we are playing around with it, even fooling around, but there is something serious in the background for me, which I observed why I'm still doing this, being 45 years old. So what I found out for me is that I have the feeling that probably we know that the human is not so far away from a machine or from a robot. The human is not a robot, so I make a quick jump. But to be honest, if I'm working with all these sensors and all these things, then I get the impression that my body is adding all this together, and maybe I consist of hardware which is doing this, and I consist of software, of an operating system that is controlling it. So the operating system is then the mind, or the, let's say, the consciousness. Are we still online? Yeah, it seems like. That is a serious question. You come up in that play, And it's been dealt, of course, in artistic questions and installations. It's not something we can answer, but it's something we look into daily, because, I mean, you people found we are here now connected through the internet. We are connected with phones. We are connected to all kind of knowledge in the world. And I have a funny thing that happens to me. If I go somewhere using the Google Maps, maybe it happened to you too, using the car or the bike, if I use the maps, the device, I will not remember the way. So the next time I go the same way, I'm not able to find it, because my mind already realized, this is external knowledge. You don't need to implement it. It will be there provided. Take the phone away from me and I find the way by asking people on the corner. The next time I know it, my mind will remember. So what we do is we build an external brain, which is the internet, which contains all the information we have, and all we get used to is we use the phone to access it. So the phone is already an interface which we implemented in our consciousness. We use it as we use the eye or the ear. It got another sense. So what I'm saying is we have to be very careful with the practice we do. If we sit in front of that for 5, 6, 7 hours and we use it much more than we use our ears or our touching sensation or the smelling or tasting sensation, so we might add something. It's very fast, it's very, but as an artist, I can tell you, all the senses, all we have, they are built in already as features. They have so big sensations too. If you go into cooking, or if you remember with your nose a situation that happened 30 years ago, I'm there in my childhood. I'm there. That is something I would really like to promote, to see the technology and the idea that we are getting a little machine-like is still transcended by who we are and what we are. And I did not find in all these years that I have a better computer, a better technology, a more efficient thing to process information, to make sense of the world, to explain, to help, to cooperate than the human being is. So the brain is something such a beauty and efficiency. We are not able to make this in technology in the next years, and not even are able for this now. We have here a quantum neuron computer that is running on 20 watt only, very, very low energy consumption, being super efficient, doing multitasking processes at the same time. So if we are so interested and astonished by latest technology and these crazy possibilities, look at what nature is doing, look at what our body is doing, look at what our mind is doing. So I had to take, as a small boy, I started with computer. I had a C64 when I was 10 years old. So that was really, I'm this computer guy, this nerd, you know. I wasn't, like, people would laugh about me. Now they say, computer, now this is all getting so interesting. But don't forget, I took my way. I thought in technology is everything. And then I discovered actually nature and complexity, especially in life, is all purest technology, which is so beautiful and brings about even a higher sense, which is my consciousness sitting there, and I'm able to live it. I'm able to be it. I'm an agent connected to all of this. I'm not alienated or distant. And that's an interesting thing. On my way, I found feeling separate a long time, or just I thought maybe I was separated from the world and the life by these machines. But I found my way back by seeing this technology and everything. Now I repeated myself. It's time to. It's time to.
Yeah. So yeah, I believe he said a lot, and the idea of the human machine, as I said previously, it has this relation of a prosthesis, because the reason why machines actually exist is because we are trying to perfect ourselves. So things that we cannot do, we're actually creating things, machines that can do and even probably do more for us. So like he said, you have an eye, but then the camera is able to capture and record, and you have it stored for a whole lot of like generations and generations to come. That is something that is like very hard for the eye and the brain to actually do for people, like to see something and capture it in your brain and then leave it. If you leave it there, then who gets to see or who gets to experience them? Yes, but the camera is actually doing something that is very interesting there. And I think this idea of human is also a very interesting thing and a very huge and broad topic that I will take like a lot to actually dissect, because then the idea of what makes something a human and what makes something not a human and what is a machine, and even the idea of what a machine is for me is a bit complex, because then we really need to understand it. Is it just about the mechanical parts moving or the processing parts? That's one thing I also wanted to mention. My materials I use, I prefer ones electronic, not electrical, because electronic has this idea of a processing IC chip, so it receives codes and then I try to find my way to hack around that code in here. So we need to understand a whole lot about these idea of the human, and I know we pride ourselves with the idea of a developed brain and our senses and our mental faculties, but gradually we are finding means to download or transfer them into these machines. So right now you have machines with heat sensors that that can activate or do something when it feels there is some, like the environment is hot or maybe gets too close to something very warm or hot. Yeah, so for me, I always look at this as we are trying to perfect ourselves by producing these consumer electronic devices, these computers and these high complex machinery. Yes.
I mean, we could continue. Look, I just have the watch in my camera eye. So, Anna, should we go a little more deeper into the question of consciousness, or maybe you want to specify some questions what you find interesting for your audience, or I play the ball back to Hungary.
Thank you. It's been really interesting to hear about your work, and all these issues I think are very relevant. I would say that maybe we can ask the participants if they want to ask any questions from you, but maybe it takes a while to think of one. So I wanted to ask you about what you think of virtual reality. Because obviously there's a lot in these gadgets that connects to sensation and bodily sensation. And that is something that completely, turns this around. And some people say that will be the space in which people will meet in the future. So yeah, I was just wondering what you think of that, and if you think that there's a way of hacking VR to talk about us kind of losing in on a lot of different sensations.
Okay. I don't know. You want to start, or should I?
Yeah, sure. I can start. Yes, for me, the virtual reality space is a very interesting space. You see, we actually, like, let's take a shovel or maybe a pickaxe. Is it the idea of a simulation here? Extension of the hand. You see, for me, I actually start from these basic ideas and then I build it up. So right now we have the ability to simulate a space. Currently, I'm looking into the idea of how the world is like one, and then we have a variety of experience towards it. So I see this, the virtual space, in a way a simulation, not exactly a simulation, but another way to experience the world around us. You see, so when I first my first encounter with the virtual space was like, okay, so it's a fake world, or it's a clone of the actual world, and we have a lot of limitations within it. Like it's a play on the eye to try to deceive you into thinking of 3D. But then I started working with the space, and I started experiencing it more, and I realized this is actually something else. It's like being someone giving you an access into their brain. You see, and to have right now, I know there are technologies coming up that are giving us more experience and more access to the virtual space. Like you take a mini catwalk, a treadmill, which allows you to walk within a virtual space, which previously wasn't possible. And now I also saw a kind of a full body suit, VR suit, a suit that gives you the possibility to even open doors with your fist, also with your palm, and even have a feedback. Kind of, if you go near fire, you can have the fuel transferred into your body. So these are really interesting discussions that we need to have about the virtual, how the virtual and the physical really relate with each other. And I mean, if we could go even a bit, we could be a bit complex and troublesome. We could think about the whole world we're experiencing right now as a simulation of that which is within our brain. Now, when I have something within my mind, I'll need to simulate it for you to experience and understand it. So it has this kind of interesting, like virtual, like within my mind is virtual. When I bring it out, it's physical, and then you have it's also transferred into like the virtual reality. So for me, this is a very like interesting discussion that I think the technology is helping us to experience the world in a much like broader sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I have this perception too. It's very interesting. If you look at reality itself, the question is it there at all? So it exists in our brain only, because what we perceive, we perceive it through our eye and ear and so on. So the world as we see it is an interpretation already, and you could call this a simulation. What we have in contemporary virtual reality, it's only a simulation for the eyes. So it's only serving one sense. It does that well. It connects in a way the mystical or the magical world, because it's the world of fantasy, it's the world of what could be, with things that you know already. So we have a surrealistic aspect or quality there already, and we can pre-design these worlds, and we can use them for computer games or for movies or for narrations that have been pre-prepared. But the idea of an open world, let's say, where you move, where you are really, where you be, and to have this in a virtual reality, this is merely impossible now. We would have, or we would need to simulate all the senses to get there, to walk, to feel like what you described with and we are getting there, we are trying this, but the more we get there, the more we have to ask ourselves the question, what we realize right now, this is all projected in us as well. So if we form another instance that would be perfect, and we could not tell if the one is true or the other, what sense would that make? So right now I like it a lot that the virtual reality visual is a dreamlike quality. You are there and you know it's simulated, and therefore you do other things than you do in reality, and you are conscious of that dream. And we have our dreams late at night and so on, and we cannot access them. So we are now playing around already with this world, and we are building it up. But if you ask me the real development which changes people's life, or where it's getting really interesting, that's the augmented reality, when you merge the real world with the simulation, or with the idea of the virtuality you have. And this is getting multi-layered, because then you don't decide for the one or the other like you do with being awake or dreaming. So
thank you. I totally agree about AR and VR, and how a virtual reality can be a space for play and imagination, imagining alternative scenarios for the world. So yeah, that was a really nice summary. Thank you. I'm wondering if others have questions. You can post them in the chat or unmute yourselves. Yeah,
can I go?
Or Jonathan, sorry. Maybe Jonathan was first, I think.
Sure. Then I was wondering, since SMDs, or surface-mounted devices, and electronics in general are getting smaller and smaller and more integrated into each other, how does that affect you, and how do you think does it affect the world with stuff being less repairable and everything gets integrated into integrated circuits? Especially think of Apple in this regard. They sold all their RAM now, and SSDs are not repairable. What do you think about that in that sense?
Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to take apart the things, and I have a soldering iron, and when I was younger, I just took out the wheel or a little sensor or so. Now it's everything integrated in one raw platine, and it's big like this, and it's capable of more than my old computer, which is 6 years old, could ever do. Well, it's a problem for us as we are circuit benders and as we are hackers, but we have all the other stuff still at our disposal, and that will continue to do so. So now, I mean, I'm even going on that way, and then I'm using a Raspberry, or we're using Arduino, where everything is small and SMD already, and then we can just make a picture of what we wanted to do, and then we are not taking the small part out of the Apple. But let's say the Apple, for instance, and Afrane is doing this a lot. I just seen 2 works on this by him. You could just extract the display, and you extract the RAM, and you extract the hard disk. So there is still a lot of components that are, let's say, not individual, but who can be used in a different context. It's now all getting faster, and like we are getting more tools even. So I don't have the feeling we are losing something. It's just things added. But I don't know, what about you?
Yeah, if I understand correctly, he's talking about repairability of gadgets coming out. Okay, yeah. So for me as an artist, I don't really like going to repair. I just try to hack my way around to see how I can work with these devices. But I think this is a very interesting topic in terms of consumer electronic products. And as I said earlier, we are trying to, by creating these, we are trying to perfect ourselves. But let's also be certain that, or let's all be aware that regardless of what goes on within the human sphere, someone will always find a way to profit from whatever is going on. So I know to them, they're trying to find means to prevent people from actually holding on to the devices for a longer period. So they try to come up with this interesting, and then they will back it with the idea of one, portability, to efficiency, and a whole lot of English words that they like to use. But I think there is, for everything that is created, there is always a way around it. So I'm sure they use something like a device to create this, And surely we could also find a device that can hack its way around it if we really want to, in terms of even repairability. So I think we should keep looking at these things. And there's always, once we have them in mind, there's always a way around some of these things. I don't know if that answers the question for you.
Yeah, sure.
I would have a small add-on. Of course, there is these evil big players as we perceive it, because it seems like after 2 years we should throw away the things that they produce. But there is many companies, so it's really, the world is very large. So if you look at the phone, for instance, for price of an iPhone, you could buy a Fairphone, which has every module single, and you can repair it easily. Or instead of a MacBook, you can buy a ThinkPad or another product that is built in a better way, because actually, it's only possible to have a world like this because we are all buying it. We find it sexy and we want it. So if we change this desire to desire products that live longer and that can produce or that can be used for a longer period, that changes the world, because the consumer is deciding on what is happening, and even a small decision changes something. This is what we teach or what we understand in the Chaos Computer Club, and that is really politics. So you have to decide on which side you want to stand.
Sure, guys, I think this is a very interesting discussion, though.
Thank you. I also like how Afrane said that in his work he's mixing up histories, and I think a lot of creative people are aware that technology and its history is all around us, whether in the scrapyards, whether in our grandparents' work offices, whatever. We all live with these objects from the past. Okay, not floppies so much, but they are still artists work with floppies. And our competition, for example, turned 20 years old this year, so you can really see how young people were always interested in different new technologies. But there's also some retro things, like someone submitted a screensaver a couple years ago that nobody uses a screensaver anymore, but he made it interactive and fun, and it worked. So I think I would encourage anyone to look at those old technologies and try and tinker and hack and use them for contemporary purposes. Maybe last question from Hannes. Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. First, thank you for your input, and the information and insights you gave into your work was very interesting. I just wondered, Andreas, you spoke about the human body as the best and efficient machine, most efficient machine we know. So in your opinion, what is the reason why mankind, or at least people in industrialized countries, are so interested in AI and in building machines that are human equal? Or
yeah, that's a good question. That's actually, it goes back to the question why we were inventing machines after all, and why now we are investing everything we have, every metal, every energy, every human resource to build up even bigger machines and bigger machines. So the question, why did we want that, is somehow forgotten. It reminds me a little of Douglas Adams of the Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy, where the computer knows the answer, which is 42, and the whole planet was built. But now another planet has to be built because the question is not there anymore. So yeah, let's look into that. Well, we wanted, when we started, to free the human from the daily job, to go on the field, to carry the water, to turn this life that took long time just to for the survival reasons, to be more free and to invest more into culture, to read books, to be free to play, to be liberated. We use this word. So at the beginning, we said, okay, now this generation, they have to work for 8 hours in the factory, but the next generation, they will be free. If we once did that and then produced enough food or whatever, you see the reality now for 4 generations of machine society that we have. We are getting deeper in it and deeper in it and deeper in it. I think this is why, or it's why, because first we do imitate. If we try to find out what the world really is, that's the Goethe idea of, okay, what does the world, what is it built of? We tried, since Democrit, we try to find the smallest part, the atomos, the one that cannot be separated anymore. But why again? We want to be more efficient, we want to be more fast, we want to answer more questions than the one question that we could answer in this lifetime, and therefore we sell our soul to this machine spirit because it seems to be possible that he answers all these questions. But if you look at the individual life, are you liberated? Are you free? Does that machine really bring this promise to you? Are you getting there after all? If you do, okay, continue. If you still ask yourself the same questions and you feel miserable, you feel running. Actually, I see most people, they are more in the rhythm of the machine and not of the human. They wanted to imitate nature in the first place, but now they build the machines and now they are imitating the machines in order to keep up with the speed, and the whole thing is turning around. If we now talk about why this is so, this is the question of life itself. And I mean, I have an idea of the answer, but that would take another hour or so. That is deeply rooted in what we call spirituality, what is maybe dealt by religions by thousands of years. There's a contemporary way of even having a spiritual idea on the machine consciousness and realm, but I think it would be too much of this discussion. But I can maybe what's interesting to highlight is okay, do we still have the question in focus? That question of actually, what did I want with it? Now then you take the phone again because like you don't know what you should do next, and it's an automatic thing already. And as more as this is getting automatically implemented, the more we end up being those machines, not having the consciousness and the broad mind of looking everywhere, asking every question, and question everything, including yourself.
Thank you. Maybe this is a good note to end. Thank you so much for your presentation and talk. I think we've heard from a lot of this interesting different fields and different topics, and it was definitely food for thought for me. So thank you very much, and thank you for taking the effort to tune in from so far away. Hopefully it was all fine for you too, and you have a nice rest of the day.
Yes, thank you so much, and I hope the presentations will go on well, and everybody can show their results to each other and ask these questions. Actually, why did we meet here? Was it for play? Was it for being together? And then it's getting nice. So thanks for being together with you.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right. I will stop the streams now as well. So for anybody who was following the stream, thank you, and bye.